Hi, I'm Amy Simpson, and I'd love to share a part of my story with you. For anyone battling her way through life, the holidays can feel like a mockery. It's a time for good cheer, gratitude, gatherings, comfort, and joy. It's the one time of year when we're consistently prompted to lean into our emotions, memories, nostalgia, family experiences, and longings, all those places where woundedness lives. We're constantly pushed into awareness of all the things we're missing. We're pressured into the frequent company of others, often those with whom we have the most complex and distressed relationships. It's no wonder many of us find it difficult to push our way through. When my mother's undiagnosed schizophrenia became impossible to explain away, my family lost a lot. My siblings and I lost a caregiver and the luxury of depending on her. Dad lost the partnership in his marriage. We all effectively lost someone we loved. And as the family's meager resources coagulated around care for Mom, we said goodbye to pictures of how we thought the future would look. We each developed our individual ways of coping, and almost without acknowledgement, our families set aside many of our established ways, rhythms, habits, and traditions in favor of a severe pragmatism born of necessity. Mom was ill for years before I was born. Schizophrenia already had a foot in the door when she was 19 when she and Dad married. But her high intelligence and concealment conspired with the ignorance, fear, and familiarity of those around her, and her illness was overlooked for years. Until the day Mom lost reality itself, and everyone ran out of excuses. In my mind, family history divides by that day. The day before and the day after we fell apart. Perhaps your story has its own day of demarcation. It's a day when you lost dreams and your vision of the future. Maybe it was a moment when a 90-degree turn led you down a path you didn't know was possible, and now you realize it's one you may travel for the rest of your life. Maybe it's a day when caregiving became part of your routine and you began learning a new lexicon. It's likely a day when fear, worry, anger, or some other dark emotion found new, comfortable corners in your heart. And for those whose emotions are ragged or who find it difficult to access hope daily, all the holiday talk of peace, joy, and hope can ring hollow. Yet for all the clanging tinsel and clashing holiday lights, there is true hope here. Jesus, whom we celebrate at Christmas, is no longer a baby in a manger, helpless and fragile. At Christmas, we're especially tempted to see Jesus only as he was at first, helpless, vulnerable, frail with human need. We remember his arriving on the scene to serve and to sacrifice, and we believe that's who we worship today. We sometimes forget the miracle of Christmas was not in birth, but in incarnation. It was God adopting flailing human form. The wonder is in the contrast between Jesus' assumed limitations and his true, measureless majesty. But Jesus is not a baby anymore. He's not a child. His body has been transformed in his resurrection, and he no longer wears the same cloak of human limitations that we do. There's nothing helpless or vulnerable about him. He's conquered death. He rules over space and time, and all of us bound up in them, and he dwells in unfathomable light. For a picture of who Jesus truly is, read Revelation chapter 19, verses 11 to 16. Knowing Jesus actually can completely change the way we think and live. We can live with remarkable faith when we know we serve a God who cannot be conquered. We can be transformed by trust, awestruck and humbled, flooded with hope. And we can accept and embrace life's unsatisfying realities, all when we remember that Jesus will return, not as a helpless baby, but in his full and impenetrable glory. All our longings and hopes will be fulfilled, and more. Perhaps you've packed your longings away like keepsakes of a time before everything changed. God wants to hold them for you, grieving with you over what you've lost and building your anticipation for what He has in store. It takes courage to live in awareness of what is and what you long for. Draw that courage from the God of all hope. Like my family, you might have adopted a firm kind of pragmatism that comes to us in times of emergency. It stays alert, assesses needs, and knows how to get the job done. It keeps us in action long past exhaustion and helps us compartmentalize life. It makes sure that grief and longing don't intrude on what needs to happen today. Like many ways to cope, that detached practicality can be both blessing and curse. It can help us function in crisis, but it can also destroy the best parts of us. It can train us to live in personal crisis even when no crisis looms, because crisis is all we know how to do anymore. And it can cost us our hope for what is better. As comfortable as that coping may be for you, please don't lose yourself to it. You were not made for a reactionary life. You were made to live with dreams, hopes, and longings, the deepest of which this life will not fulfill. Our longings connect us with hope. Hope is the gateway to anticipation, and anticipation can reframe our whole experience. Witness this kind of power in the words of the Apostle Paul, who endured excruciating suffering and who wrote in Romans chapter 8, verse 18, "What we suffer now is nothing compared to the glory He will reveal to us later." Whether you feel blessed or not this holiday, as a follower of Christ, you are. Your future is secure in the hands of the one who made all time. You have your own caregiver who knows better than you do that this life is not what it should be. When you let yourself live with longing, you make room for eternal hope and anticipation. Let's take a moment to reflect. What are you longing for? How do your longings make room for hope? How can you shift your focus from the baby in the manger to the coming King who makes all things new and restores all that sin and death aim to steal? Now let's take a moment to imagine. Take a moment to sit still and notice what feelings, thoughts, or longings you are experiencing this holiday season. Consider sharing how contemplating Jesus in His current majesty and glory as the King over everything shapes the hope you can have during this time. Join the conversation at everywomans-story.com.